This is the summary of How Google Works by Eric Schmidt and Alan Eagles. Introduction. Google launched in 1998 with two leaders, Sergey Brin and Larry Page, who saw their lack of formal business training as an asset. They started with a good product and worthy values and built the company based on them, ignoring conventional business wisdom in favor of doing the right thing for their company. Google runs on innovation and collaboration, relying on wildly talented employees to solve problems, even when those problems lie outside of their field of expertise. In short, Google works on passion. As you read, keep in mind these lessons about how Google works. 1. Culture. Create a culture that's flat, messy, and collaborative. 2. Strategy. Instead of using market research, use technical insights to create your strategy and let it unfold as you go. 3. Talent. The hiring process should be led by peers, not management. 4. Decisions. You can create consensus by having open conversations and appointing one person to facilitate them. 5. Communication. Leaders should expect to be routers of information, not delegators. 6. Innovation. Innovation should be baked into the culture of a company. Culture. Believe your own slogans. Culture is the one aspect of a startup that's crucial to get right from the get-go. Once you establish a culture, that culture tends to select new employees that fit into it, making it nearly impossible to change in the future. Your culture should reflect what the founding team cares about and believes in, who they aspire to be, and how they want the company to make decisions. Consider what values you want a tired or stressed out employee to fall back on when they need to make a choice. One of Google's top priorities is designing their space and community to encourage collaboration. While many startups offer wide open spaces, the Google offices tend to be cramped and messy, with leaders living and working among their employees. This, in turn, supports another core belief: the highest paid people are rarely the smartest in the room. Google flattens its structure by assigning a maximum of 7 direct reports to each manager and openly encourages dissent. The company organizes itself around the people who are not just the most talented, but the most passionate as well. Many companies try to solve morale problems by forcing fun into the workplace with holiday parties, casual Fridays, or corporate team-building sessions. Google, on the other hand, believes that fun should be baked into the work itself. Employees should be challenged so that the projects they're working on are fun to them. And if there are outings, they should be genuine opportunities for employees to relax and enjoy themselves. Rosenberg, for instance, takes his teams to see the wonders of California's natural beauty, while early in Google's history, Larry Page and Sergey Brin invited employees to participate in roller hockey games. Google doesn't believe in work-life balance because work, in Google's culture, is just part of life. In other words, life doesn't need to be an escape from the workplace. Strategy. Your plan is wrong. In Google executives' experience, MBA-style business plans are rarely worth the effort they take to create because they're speculative. Even if a plan is well thought out and meticulously prepared, it's probably flawed in some way, such as lacking insight on some crucial, unseen detail. More often than not, business plans have to change anyway. Part of the problem is that business plans hinge on market research, which is backward-looking. Rather, smart creatives thrive in environments that focus on new ways to solve important problems and let the business plan unfold as those insights grow. There are a few different potential sources of such insights. One is to apply existing, accessible data technologies to an industry to solve problems in a new way. Another is to start with a niche problem and widen its scope. For instance, the internet was initially designed as a way for scholars to collaborate and share their research, but applied broadly, it's become the go-to source for most human information gathering. Another important aspect of a business strategy is to not just grow, but scale and multiply quickly. The best way to do this is to grow a platform or a group of products and services aimed at multiple markets of users. Google is a platform that now stands in for word processing, spreadsheets, cloud storage, data collection, and email apps all in one place, making it easily marketable to many different fields. Talent. Hiring is the most important thing you do. The single most important thing that a manager does is hiring, but the hiring process is broken. Most managers default to this broken system, endless screenings, interviews, and haggling, because it's what they went through to get their job. Worse still, even though the new hire needs to be able to work collaboratively on a team, the hiring process isn't collaborative. Rather, it often winds up in the hands of the manager alone. Ideally, hiring in tech should look more like hiring in academia. The candidate's peers are in on the process and have some say so. There are a few characteristics you should look for in new hires. One is that they don't need to say they're passionate. Their work will speak for their passion. Specifically, they'll stick with an interest for a long period of time, whether or not they're successful at first. Pay attention to candidates' hobbies. For example, Rosenberg and Schmidt have hired people who studied Sanskrit or made a hobby of restoring pinball machines. Seeing a project through because it's interesting is a skill that not everyone has. Another characteristic to look for is a love of learning. You don't need to hire people who have excelled in the role they applied for in the past. You need people who have demonstrated an ability to learn and adapt. Specialization is a quick road to mediocrity. Finally, Google employs the lax test. If you were stuck at an airport for 6 hours with this person, would you get mind-bogglingly bored in their company, or would you be able to pass the time in conversation? You don't have to like the candidate, necessarily, but a good culture fit should be someone whose personality is aligned enough with yours that working with them won't be a drag. Because hiring is the most important job a manager does, it's important for managers to know how to interview. Candidates are told to prepare for interviews by researching the company and people they'll be talking to. Likewise, the interviewer should reciprocate by researching the candidate and coming prepared to talk about their experience. Keep interviews to 30 minutes, any more than that taxes everyone involved, and it won't give you more insight into who the candidate is or whether they'll be a good fit. Remember that the goal of interviewing is to form an opinion of the candidate, so you should be walking away with a fair degree of certainty what you think about the interviewee. Decisions, the true meaning of consensus. Making the right choice isn't the only important part of the decision-making process. How you make decisions matters too, as well as the timing and implementation of the decision. The right decision made poorly, at the wrong time, or poorly implemented, is the wrong decision. Decisions should be made by consensus, but that doesn't mean one person should badger a room full of other people into saying yes if those people have objections. Conflict is a healthy part of the decision-making process. It leads to more considerate, thorough decisions. The key is to have one person present who watches the deadline for the process and breaks a tie if necessary. This person owns the timing. They also own the execution. Once they've rung the bell for the deadline or broken the tie, they must get everyone to either commit or escalate the decision publicly. Communications, be a damn good router. As far as communications go, the role of leaders isn't to absorb all pertinent information and distribute it to their employees as they see fit, which is what happens in most hierarchical organizations. Rather, leaders should be routers of information. They should share information freely but also efficiently, so those who need the information have it as soon as possible. A good starting principle is to default to open communication. If someone thinks a piece of information shouldn't be shared, they must have a really excellent justification for it withholding it. This includes leadership failures. When you make a mistake, it's crucial to acknowledge and own it publicly. Another important open communication principle is to make it safe for employees to tell the truth. Leaders should start conversations to open opportunities for honesty. It can be helpful to have a general set of guidelines for how to communicate in different kinds of meetings. For one-to-one meetings, managers and employees should write down the most important 5 topics for the meeting ahead of time and check for overlap at the beginning of the meeting. When setting the agenda for board meetings, make sure to prioritize conversations about strategy and products rather than governance. And don't avoid difficult subjects by hiding in conversations about minutiae. Additionally, meetings with partners demand diplomacy. Accept ahead of time that you'll have ideological differences with your partners and focus on pragmatic matters instead. Finally, for press interviews, don't recite a message from a set of notes, have a conversation. Innovation, create the primordial ooze. Innovation is the creation and use of new, surprising, and radically useful ideas. Google X, the company's research and development arm, has 3 criteria for an innovative idea. It must address a problem that affects at least hundreds of millions of people. It must be completely different from anything else that currently exists. It must be deliverable in the near future. Innovation also needs to be baked into the culture. The company can't appoint one executive to be in charge of innovation. Everyone should be on board, especially the CEO. This is crucial, especially as your company scales. In a startup, everyone is willing to take risks, but once a company scales, employees start to get comfortable and will only make leaps of faith if they see leadership doing it first. Innovation should start big. Telling creatives to think big not only gives them more freedom but also increases the likelihood that the idea will succeed. The bigger the idea, the less room the company has to fail, and the more it invests in the idea's development. Big ideas also bring big thinkers to the company. Pursue these big ideas by setting goals for employees that are just barely unattainable. Smart creatives will stretch themselves to make the impossible possible. Conclusion. Traditional businesses see change as a threat, and they're right, because unconventional organizations are likely to surpass them in terms of talent, delivery, and innovation. Don't fall back on mediocrity. Instead, remember the insights you learned in this snapshot about how Google works. 1. Culture. Create a culture that's flat, messy, and collaborative. 2. Strategy. Instead of using market research, use technical insights to create your strategy and let it unfold as you go. 3. Talent. The hiring process should be led by peers, not management. 4. Decisions. You can create consensus by having open conversations and appointing one person to facilitate them. 5. Communication. Leaders should expect to be routers of information, not delegators. 6. Innovation. Innovation should be baked into the culture of a company.